in that business, it ended up being mastering.com. It grew over the past couple years to get to seven figures. And the whole idea was stemming back to that thing that I experienced at 16, which is traditional academia is not serving people. And I saw all these people's lives get transformed by just teaching them a skill set.
The following guest on the Music Work podcast is very cool. His name is Blake Lagrange, and he's the founder of mastering.com and more recently, college.com. Throughout this conversation, we talk about Blake's musical and entrepreneurial background, the journey of starting, scaling, exiting, and selling his majority stake in mastering.com, the modern world of the music industry and the paths it currently leaves for musicians, the functions and challenges of using social media, faith and his current mission at college.com to help underground talent make money doing what they love and are great at. This conversation is a little different from most of the other conversations so far on the pod, but in a good way. If you're a musician who's ready to have your horizons opened in terms of what this crazy modern world of being a musician has to offer you, then you will enjoy this episode. My name is Allison Legendre, and this is the Music Work Podcast. Please do enjoy. All right, let's do it. So for those who are listening who don't know, you've had a really cool career as a musician and entrepreneur. You were a music producer working with a lot of cool artists like Lil Wayne. You started and exited a seven-figure education company called mastering.com. Now you're helping underground talent make money doing what they love at college.com. A lot of really cool things. I'm curious, what skills, if any, do you feel you've learned being a musician that you've applied to your entrepreneurial journey?
That's a pretty good intro, I might say. I feel like it's very accurate. What skills as a musician? I mean, there's like hard skills, right?
Right.
Like hard skills meaning tactical skills, like especially in the studio, there's like signal flow, there's like routing, setting up mics, all this stuff. So like all the systems and stuff totally apply. But then even like creativity, I think that business seems to be almost only tactile or non-emotive or something like this. But I think in the music world, it's all about setting up the right environment and then just setting up the mics. And as long as the talent's there, like it'll all just work just fine. Usually the only issues are technical, it seems. So it's all about creating the right environment and then letting it kind of flow from there. That 100% kind of transplants itself into the entrepreneurship journey, at least in my experience.
That's so interesting. And I wasn't sure how you were going to answer that question, but I just thought I'd throw it out there. But
Same. I
yeah,
didn't know how I was going to answer it either.
no, you did great. And I think that's huge. I think environment is so important and underrated because really that's what creating a business is, especially when you've done exited a business. It's like, how do you create an environment that makes other people's lives easy and makes other people happy and delivers value? And it's just that creativity to build the environment. And yeah, the working out the technical kinks in the process is definitely a good skill to have too when it comes to all the content that goes around business these days. So that's super cool. I was wondering, could you just briefly walk us through some of your background, maybe just a little bit of the key events from where you started as a musician and the key events
Sure.
in your entrepreneurial journey that led you to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. I feel like everything started at like 16 or 17, but really I'm realizing that who I was growing up and my family and sort of that talking about environments again, that environment was probably the thing that bred the most fruit, or at least I can trace everything back to like some key moments in my youth, um, which we can get into if we want, but essentially just on purely just more of like a trajectory, sort of milestones. Graduated high school early. I was 16, and that set me up to basically go like I was sort of like an old soul from the beginning. Not to be overly pretentious, but I was sort of set in this place of like, I'm 16, I'm out of high school. What do I want to do? And I was severely dissatisfied with the education system, even at that point. Just I remember 15, 16 years old looking at the trajectory of high school going, gosh, there's so many electives and I just want to do music and I know what I want to do and I just don't want to waste any time.
Hmm.
And so I just sort of like fast tracked my way out of there and just knew what I wanted to do. Didn't want to go to college, didn't want to do any of that other stuff. Not that there's anything inherently wrong with that, but I just remember falling in love on the bus, listening to my, I have AirPods now, but before there were, actual wire headphones, listening to different artists and bands and going like, oh, this is a band over here and this band over here. And I just loved being able to like the idea that you could control where the sound went and stuff. That was like very exciting to me. So I just knew I wanted to do production. So I just launched myself into the recording studio, and I'll make this quick, I promise. And spent my basically 10 years as a record producer. Just boom, that's what I did, working with everybody, horrible, horrible, horrible talent to unbelievable talent, everybody in between. And living in that space for 10 years, it I guess it was formidable, but I realized that I didn't necessarily want to do that forever, but I'll always have a passion for this. And what I really discovered in that moment is that was my first moment of, oh, I work for myself. Because I think all the other interns in the studio thought that they would get a job at the studio. And I think what they really mean was they just want to get paid to do what they love. And they thought that the way to do that is to get a job. So I remember there's a couple moments in that where I'm like, oh, if I just bring clients and studio and musicians and stuff to the studio, and as long as the overhead gets met at the studio side, like I can keep whatever I want. That's where I realized, oh, I'm like my own boss. This is cool. And that like lit a fire of, so actually I think it poured gasoline on a fire that was already there of, oh, I'm gonna kind of like forge my own path, if you will. And so did that for 10 years, music producer, working as a producer, musician in the recording studio back when recording studios were the thing to get the sound that you needed. And then shifted into mastering, online mastering, doing, now I'm sort of like jumping a little bit here, but doing like done for you, if you will, like online mastering. So you would type in online mastering in Google and I would show up, and I'm sitting there behind NS10s and a sub and some gear going, okay, I'm going to master whatever's going to come through here. And then pivoted pretty heavily into that, which got me into like, oh, this is like an online business, I guess. So even though I was like, it was very analog, no pun intended, I I was creating an income and marketing and selling online, but doing actual real world stuff. Like I wasn't like marketing and I wasn't like generating leads for people. It was like somebody would pay me for something that I knew how to do and I did it and then I sent it back to them. And did that, grew that, had a team of people, a team of engineers, and started to realize there was real power in that. And that's where I got to work with. I literally mastered, us and our team mastered something like 30,000 songs and got a process dialed in. From there, started selling information online. So I became sort of like a person in this industry that knew what they were doing. And instead of trying to fake it till I make it, I faked it, then I made it, and then I knew what I was doing. And then I literally just had a process. It was a linear process. Upload this song, do this, do that, and there it is. And everybody thought that so it was some dark art, but I just told people what the process was. Sold that as like as coaching, as a course, as a process, and somebody bought it, and then like thousands of people bought it. And then in that business, it ended up being mastering.com. And it grew over the past, I want to say it took a couple years to get to seven figures, but I sort of woke up and went, oh my gosh, we have a team of people. I think at one time there's like 33 employees. Um, and the whole idea was stemming back to that thing that I experienced at 16, which is traditional academia is not serving people. And I saw all these people's lives get transformed by just teaching them a skill set. So then, yeah, just built that up, and really proud of that business. And then I exited that business and then sold that business. I'm still a stakeholder in it, and but I'm, I've removed myself, and now the team's running it, and it's growing, and we brought on some really cool mentors and coaches, and very, very proud of that business. And then through that journey, and I'll sort of wrap it up here, that journey, again, more on the online education thing, had a real heart and a real passion for people like me who had deep domain expertise, who wanted to find more leverage in their business, have bigger possibilities, bigger opportunities. Got excited about it in some version online. So that could be selling a course, or selling mentorship or something like this. And, I'm just looking for those people now who are very, very, very good at what they do. But this whole online business thing, it's either this unknown, or they're making 100 grand a month and they don't know what to do, and they want to get their lives back. And now I'm working with people who, there's one client we have that's making almost $1 million a month, and they don't know what to do. They don't know whether to sell their business or exit their business. And so I look back and I go, oh my goodness, there was so much there, and I have domain expertise for all these different types of people. And I'm just very, very passionate about serving anybody in the online education space, rediscovering a new way of doing business that right now breaks against the mold of the traditional, online model world. So many different little things in that story, but that's sort of the general high overview of probably the longer answer that you weren't asking for.
No, I love it. Absolutely, because I mean, like, the details have always been a mystery to me of, like, how even just your world of, like, music works, because for context, I come from a world of music where it's, like, live performances, like,
Right.
hire me for your event or maybe a little concert here or there, and I've always just been really curious about like what your world is and like that other side of being a musician is on the production end, and obviously where you took it is extremely cool, and it's so cool that you're able to take those skills and help other creatives now be able to share their expertise online. So yeah, no, I love it. I want to dive into a lot of the things that you said there. First off, you mentioned that you graduated from high school early. You knew what you wanted to do, and you knew that the education system, there was a flaw, something was broken. Can you expand on that a little bit? Like, what did you see, or what did you feel was wrong with the way traditional academia is done? Would you say?
At risk of sounding like Robert Kiyosaki, or like a boomer or something, it's generally speaking, the
Right.
formal institution of education, whether it's high school, public high school, going into any sort of university, generally speaking, trains you how to be an employee.
Hmm.
And I don't know if it's just Rage Against the Machine angst in me, or I come from an immigrant family, or I've just always been rebellious, or it just didn't make sense. But I knew that for the passionate, devoted entrepreneur who doesn't even have the vocabulary to know what entrepreneur is, that just doesn't sit right with that person.
Hmm.
So once I realized I was able to sort of, first of all, I felt deep insecurity about all my friends going to college,
Hmm.
and they were much smarter than me. They could pass the SAT, all this stuff. They're going to make all this money. There's going to be security. I just sort of had, well, my only option is to sort of grin and bear it myself. And, later I kind of look back at all those friends and go, wow, I've made more than them. I have more time than them. It's not like, oh, I'm such an amazing person, but I'm going, man, I've been sold like that is the only safe and secure way. And I look at that as a very risky thing, as,
Hmm.
now you get in all this debt. And okay, best case scenario, you're one of my friends in New York who go land a high multi six figure job, multi seven figure job even at Google, and you get taxed, and you're a slave basically. And I never really quite found that to be that appealing. So once I saw that, like, I was able to carve my own little path, and then have multiple students myself, and then be able to work with, yeah, like somebody like you, or somebody who is also a creative individual or has some sort of deep domain expertise. I'm looking at them as like, wow, they are really the faculty here. They're really the teachers. They're they've found a way to make an income doing what they love. And isn't that what most high schoolers want anyways, is to just do that?
Hmm.
And I don't know, I that's sort of like I think the little storyline that keeps creeping in everything that I do.
Hmm. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I didn't have the confidence to like verbalize it when I was, because I've played that game too, and I went the whole university route, and I did do music. I think when you learn music specifically, like that's something that no one can take away from you. And
Right.
you're going to develop, even if like the whole system itself isn't really setting you up for success. Like music can be a part of you that, no matter which education system you learn it from, that can't be taken away and it's always going to be useful. But I do agree that like people are lacking the vocabulary to understand what entrepreneurship is, or recognize themselves as, okay, this is why I don't feel like I fit in this regular, road path that I see everyone else going in. And I think for creatives to be able to have more information, they can maybe more quickly find their path. I mean, like you obviously did very quickly. You kind of had that light bulb moment of, oh, this is how I make money online. And it was funny, we were talking earlier, and I had a similar light bulb moment too, where it's just like, I'm like, oh, I want to start an online business. And then I realized, like, oh, wait a second, I'm booking musicians for gigs and making money online. And even though it is like a physical thing, I had the same epiphany where like, oh yeah, this is an online business in its own way. So there's a lot of creative ways to do things. And I think finding your own mold and
Mm.
model is a part of that. So
Well, I think the thing that we have similarity in is that, like, as you said, booking for people in sort of in the real world. That's not
mhm.
quite how you put it, but like
Yeah,
not
that's it
online.
though.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like in the real world. It does remind me of when I was turning knobs. It's like the fulfillment. I always say this, like
Hmm.
the fulfillment mechanism, or just how you actually deliver the value in the work.
Hmm.
That still exists in your real world,
Right.
but the online business, I think the first sort of iteration of that is you're getting leads online, or you're
Hmm.
marketing online, or you're creating content online, just trying to attract, but you still fulfill online.
Hmm.
Or I'm sorry, in person. You still
Hmm.
fulfill in person. But the huge shift happens when I wonder if I can fulfill online as well.
Hmm.
And the only way I found that is to host meetings on Zoom where you mentor people, or you package that fulfillment into training and then they consume it and you help them through it. Those seem to be like the boom major shift. But honestly, I don't know if you've experienced this, but the people who have real world experience and they have done the actual work in person and can package that somehow online into things that people can chew on, that seems to be 10 times out of 10 the people who've never done something in the real world. We
Mm.
might be talking over a few people here, but I think that just something that you've said that really rings true is making money online seems to be like marketing or leads or traction, but you can shift into actually taking that fulfillment that you're doing in real life and somehow put it online as well. That becomes a totally different game. It's difficult to do though.
Hmm. Well, like you said, you put in your
Yeah.
10 years like mastering the craft, like no pun intended, but and that's why you had those real world skills that you could apply. And that's why even when it comes to sort of my niche with the live performance, the people that I get to help like do sales and things like that, they still need that niche expertise, at least in my opinion, to like be
Right.
the one managing the business online. Like having that real world experience is super important because yeah, you can't just sell fluff. You need to have real value. But yeah, finding a way to package things online definitely does give a lot of leverage. And I do have one friend who actually like makes custom recordings for like weddings, and he's found a way to like package like his expertise like in a online
Oh,
format.
cool.
So yeah, like live music does have a lot of value, but there are different ways to do it. It is super neat. But
Right.
um yeah, it's a whole journey there. I'm curious because you said that you found that your formative years were very like helped shape the way that things go, and you were like, I don't know if I'll dive into that. What do you think were some of the things you mentioned? You came from like immigrant family. I'm just curious, like what were some of the key events in
Yeah.
your formative years that kind of shaped making someone like you, because you people like you don't aren't as common, making like these businesses and taking their music to this degree of creativity in the online world. So where would you say that came from in your background?
I appreciate the question because I think that I think that the secret or whatever you want to call it to actually succeeding in doing a hard thing like trying to start an online business or something is I'm learning more and more of this. It's less and less about tactics, it's less and less about models and more about trusting your intuition. And if you wanted to do that, it's like, well, where does your intuition come from? It's sort of like implanted in you, it's like, okay, there's something there. And then there's environment, growing up, and all of these different things that sort of drive you. Um, you can pretty much, I think, you can trace like somebody said this, like, show me somebody when they're 7, and I'll show you who they're going to be the rest of their life, kind of thing. It
Mm.
even deep trauma of like human beings, like you can trace it back to like these early moments. But for me, it was a combination of rigorous discipline and stability in my home, and then separation in my home and having to
Mm.
fend for myself and like the
Mm.
sequencing of those things. So having the stability in my home, really sort of the nuclear family, 2.5 kids kind of thing, and um, very stable, safe environments. Um, I did martial arts when I was 6, and so like a rigid, regimen of practice and discipline. Learning piano, like things that like are actually pretty rare these days. Like all of those things are. It's very privileged to say something like this because I don't think
Mm.
that's the story of lots of people. So I do not undervalue that whatsoever. That alone, um, there was so much. There's such a playground of intuition and flexibility and nurturing that I had. And then right around the time I was 15, 16, my family unit, my parents split up, which is, now that's like 50% of households, right? Um,
Mm.
that combined with fending for yourself and you're 16 and, that you just got all this passion and anger and instability and fear, you know, it's like, man, that's a perfect combination of like trying to make something happen because you can rely
Mm.
on the stability that you had, but also the fear that you're backed into
Yeah.
a corner. And I can honestly say that like the combination of those two things, and I only realized this very recently, but the combination of those two things actually is what propelled me into what I was doing. So I
Mm.
think those stories that are much more ordinary than, oh, I built and sold like a huge online education company and like investing in other education companies now. Those seem like very grand things, but I think to be honest, like any ordinary person has the combination of like their childhood up until 15, 16, 17 years old that define who they are. And if you're just curious about those things, that usually ends up being the answer to like why these problems exist in your business or what you need to do moving forward. You can
Mhm.
always stem back to those environments.
Mhm. Wow, that's interesting. Were your parents entrepreneurial at all, or what was that environment like?
You know that so it's interesting. I didn't realize that, but yeah, my dad has always been one. So it's
Really?
it's those classic like
Mhm.
it's caught not taught thing.
Mhm.
So yeah, he was an architect, always was hunting for business, was designing, always an entrepreneur. Yeah, my mom was always working too, and I probably saw that and
Mhm.
that you sort of file saved that like, oh, that's what
Mhm.
you do, you kind of
Mhm.
pave your own path and work and do what you love to do. And yeah, didn't really, if my dad was spent 35 years as a dentist at the same practice, I think I'd be a much different person than who I am today for sure.
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's definitely useful to look back. I think that I know I can speak for myself anyways, like looking back in the healthy way of, what can we learn rather than just staying stuck there, but like applying it
Right.
to what are your skill sets that you have because of that is a really healthy lens to put on and important because like I know we both or maybe you've heard like we both know Sam Mubbins, he says, or maybe I don't know who the first person who said it was, but there's no personal problem or no business problems, just personal problems
Right,
reflected
right.
in the business. So
Yeah,
it's like,
I'm sure
yeah,
you could
it's always
trace that piece
connected.
of advice back to some Hebrew literature somewhere. Like it wasn't an original idea that came up in the last 5 years, but yeah, that's very much true for sure.
Yeah, no, Sam gets all the credit. I'm kidding.
Right.
But
But it's true. It's very
yeah,
true.
yeah, it is interesting. I think that it's healthy to look at things because I've done a similar sort of recap before, and I think realizing that like you can be thankful for both pain and the good things that you had, because sometimes like pain can shape character, right, and form who you are, and like you said, the independence you learn from the family situation, and looking at that a new light of like the positive from that. But yeah, I think like being thankful for like both the good and the bad and how they work together to bring you to where you are, I think that's an important filter and one that's healthy to think about. So thank you for sharing that. I know that this is real life. This is
Yeah,
what everyone has, like their stuff, right? And things that they can use, like good or not good to fuel them to move forward and be better. So that's cool. Thank you for sharing that. I know that like we're like in this online world, and our audience might be a little bit more in the musician
yeah,
world right
right,
now too. So I'm just curious because again, I'm coming from the world of like live performance, and you
right.
like had music production studio. Like this might be like just a dumb question, but do you mind just explaining to me, and maybe the few others in our audience who don't understand like me, what is like the business model? Like, how does that work as a career, for like getting into music production? Like, is there a lot of demand for like just other
Mm,
musicians who want their music produced, or is it more people like sort of mixing and mastering their own music nowadays? Like, just what is that world like? How does it become a career? Because I know it's
yeah.
different than what I'm used to. So if you don't mind
I
explain that one for us.
I feel like it's always changing, and I don't think that's a dumb
Yeah.
question at all, by the way. That's
Okay.
a question is
I'm
the
not the only
most
one
creative thing
confused.
you can do. It didn't exist before you created it, right? So like
Right.
I love it. Um well, like there's the musician or the artist, and then there's the person who helps the musician and the artist.
Mhm.
And I always said it like it's the person on the other side of the glass, you know?
Mhm.
They seem to be the ones who can develop a faster career.
Mhm.
So like if you're a musician and you're trying to do something, which all musicians are, they're trying to make it, they're trying to do something. They're always driven
Mhm.
by something. If you can help that person in any way, they'll say yes to it and there's more of a career there. So that's sort of the easier way. I think the more difficult way is to just authentically be a musician and get paid for it and develop a career. That's so difficult. So I think if you look at it those two personas, then you can sort of pave a path. So for the musician, it seems, at least in my experience, to develop a real career as a musician, I think that there's the musician, and then there's or the musician or performer, then there's the artist.
Mhm.
Those also seem to be sort of two subcategories there. The musician
Mhm.
performer person is, hey, I can play music, I'm good at singing, I'm good at playing an instrument. What are ways to get paid to do this? And it's live performances, right? Corporate gigs, weddings. I mean, you know this more than I do,
Mhm.
but that sort of things. Just finding clients that'll pay you for your talent. An artist is a little bit more difficult
Mhm.
because you're trying to prove something, you have something to say. You're not
Mhm.
servicing anybody. Nobody's going to pay you to sing your original songs. So that seems to be from 19 whatever 50 something to 19, I want to say till 2001, 2002, it was generally speaking, you're just you be an artist and a record label picks you up and they sponsor you by giving you money to create music, and you go on tour and you get royalties, and that was sort of the cheat code. Now, since from 2001 to I want to say 2010, it was no more royalties, no more like record deals, none of that stuff. It was people who could make money, who already had an audience, who could go make money on tour, who already had a following. So you see the dependence on the record label go down and the dependence on the audience and the people that you connect with go up.
Mhm.
So 2001 to 2000, the only reason I'm saying those specific dates is I'm literally thinking of the bands I worked with that got really big in 2001. I won't name them. Um, that's how it was. But
Mhm.
that was sort of like a little sliver of change there, that time period. Now from 2010 to now, which as we're recording is 2023, it's totally focused on your audience and
Mhm.
totally focusing on who you can connect with regardless of the record label. So there's no such thing as like, oh, I got signed, therefore I'm going to make money.
Mm.
It's if you can control your audience, you can control your income, essentially. So the way that most artists, again, artists, not musicians, but artists are doing that they're just cultivating a community. They're creating
Mm.
music, trying to find ways to pay the bills like every artist does outside of what their craft is. And as long as they're cultivating some sort of audience, which is can either be done digitally or locally, probably digitally now, then there's always ways. It's just like business. There's always ways to quote funnel those people into some sort of paid engagement, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's a community that like a Patreon that supports you, whether that's like you go on tour and you sell merchandise. That seems to be like the thing that's happening now. Or my neighbor Taylor Swift on our street, she's gonna make $1 billion she's gonna be a billionaire just from this tour that she's doing. Turns out that selling tickets and selling merchandise actually is actually the way that you make money in this game. Just selling out live places and selling merchandise. That's it. What allows you to do that? Again, your audience. Can you develop a connection with your audience? I'm speaking too much here, but on the music production side of things, it used to be, just get really good at Pro Tools, Logic. I
Mm-hmm.
never got good at Logic, but Pro Tools, and insert yourself into a recording studio and record bands and stuff like this. And then it shifted into, again, technology, and the digital thing changed everything. Now it's, are you good on a laptop? Can you create sounds? Can you create, a soundscape around somebody and just like produce and then charge for that? I do a per song production or something like this. That's what the company that I started really helps people do. And then it seems to be really like on the production side of things, the career element, it's like less and less and less and less and less about the recording studio and more about artist development and again, attracting like an audience. It seems to be like the attention economy seems to be winning right now. And who in the world knows what that's going to produce. But I feel like I'm too old to know what the future is there. No idea. What do you think it is? I don't know.
I don't know. Right now, I'm like, my brain's like, I'm just trying to like wrap my head around everything you just said. It's like is Taylor Swift actually your neighbor? That's so cool.
Well, she
Cool.
like three or four houses down. Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's
I
awesome.
love her.
Yeah,
I'm like the biggest Taylor Swift fan ever.
I do too. I went to like a really like sorry, it's a complete side story that no one cares about. I went to like a high school where it was like real hipster and like I had to hide how much I liked Taylor Swift because it was all
Oh
just
yeah,
like
yeah. I get
it's
made
all like,
fun
oh, I'm
of
listening to
like,
someone you've never heard of before, but I'm like, I'm listening to Taylor Swift, sorry.
oh totally,
But
yeah. It's I always feel like guilty pleasures, and you should never feel guilty for them because they're pleasurable. So yeah, I love Taylor. I like unapologetically love her. She's great.
yeah, no, she's a smart one. That's so cool. But yeah,
Mm,
I agree that like I can see how it's hard to keep up with like the music world because it is changing so fast. It almost seems like the music itself is just like almost an ad, like creating a
right.
following for whatever the monetization vehicle is going to be that you figure out as you go. So I see why it's a challenging world, interesting world. What do you think has changed for like the better or worse with like technology and social media and streaming? Do you think it's generally gotten better or like I know it's just completely changed things, but what are your thoughts on how things have evolved?
It favors a certain type of artist or creative person. So like back
Mm-hmm.
in 1950, 1960, 1970, that side of thing, the creativity was produced in the music, and
Mm-hmm.
you were very reliant on some way to fund that endeavor and to commercialize that and to redistribute that. And the way that that was done was through radio, selling vinyls, um, and so a really heavy reliance on who controlled the listeners. As you can put it pretty
Mm-hmm.
simply there, like who controls the listeners?
Mm-hmm.
The suits control the listeners. It's good and bad in that technology came in and it it shortened the gap or made it tiny between like the
Hmm.
artist and the person they're trying to connect with.
Right.
See, so like that was good. So it's bad however, it's bad because you have all these creative people that don't know how to monetize their audience.
Yeah.
They just want to make music
Right.
and connect with them.
Uh-huh.
So it's bad in that, you know, you're authentically connecting with so many people and you're not making anything. And I think it'll be good, but it's bad because the people who know how to monetize their audience usually don't make good music.
Hmm.
And they make music this sounds weird, they make music for their audience, which is perfectly fine. But if their audience is determined by whatever the algorithm tells you their audience is, they will make some weird niche music that's only for them just to boost ratings on TikTok, just
Hmm.
to boost not ratings, but views on TikTok, etc. So it's good and bad, but I think ultimately bring it on because AI and connecting with your audience and so forth, I don't look at that as competing at all. I look at those as tools you can use that that there's a real opportunity to pioneer different models in the music industry right now that I'm very curious about. But ultimately, I'm not on the side of this is all horrible and this is bad. I think is if you can connect to your audience very quickly through the rise of technology, you'll basically win, which technology has allowed us to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I see what you mean. It has created some opportunity for distortion. Like I feel like there's almost because if people are making music like inauthentically for just like algorithms as opposed to good music, like there's just so much music that isn't good. But I also find like some people I love, like on like Instagram, like I don't know if you know Lafe or just like people like that who created their own following. And like you said, it's a model of being able to attract the audience. The thing is that you need the skill of creating content or that personality,
Right.
anyways, to package with your music. And every once in a while, they do go together where it's like really unique, good music and social media skills, but it definitely changes things. But you're right, it's here to it's not going anywhere. So you might as well
Yeah.
just learn to work with it. You know what I
It
mean?
it really is just adding another dimension, right? So like there's audio and then there's
Mm-hmm.
visual,
Mm-hmm.
and all that's happening is visuals catching up.
Yeah.
Like the musician and the artist just make music and they don't have to worry about dancing on TikTok or whatever. But now since we live on where's my phone? We live on these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um there's that other element. So the artist now has to pivot and they feel inauthentic, but really what all that's adding is medium visual. So I don't know what to
Mm-hmm.
do visually to represent what I'm making sonically. But if you can
Mm-hmm.
crack those two things, you can still be authentic to whatever music you're creating, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely an interesting world. But I mean,
Mm.
if you're creative enough to make music, I think a lot of those skills can carry over. I think that it's definitely a lot of people who have done some really cool content strategies when it comes to their music. But you gotta find what find what works. But you said something
Right.
that like kind of like just blew my mind when you said it on your interview with Sam, and that was some. And I might misquote you, so you might need to correct me. But something about vinyl being bigger than streaming. Did you say something like that
Oh yeah.
about
What's
like
funny to
what is
that
that? Like,
interview?
is that real?
It is real. Yeah. It's like I what's funny about that interview is I went there and I did it and then I think I watched it once and then I never watched it again, so I don't remember what I said. But um yeah, I that's true. Like there's a resurgence of vinyl right now and
Hmm.
um I think I forget what the stat is, but like I think there were more vinyl record sales like ever. You know what I mean? Like even back when vinyl was a thing, it like
Hmm.
overtook it or something.
Whoa.
So yeah, it's for whatever reason it's coming back. I don't understand why because it's so horribly inconvenient, but it's cool. Like I learned how to master for vinyl. Like I have like a record player in my office that was like on the set of Mad Men. Like I love the whole niche of it, but I have no idea. Maybe I hope it's not a trend. I have no idea, but it's absolutely overtaking streaming, and I think it probably has something to do with well, streaming's not paying me,
Mm-hmm.
and if I sell a vinyl, it'll pay me. So If I have to sell an antiquated old thing in order to make money to connect with my audience, I will, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a great medium because now you make music for vinyl. It's like there's a side A and a side B. So when you're writing and you're producing, you're thinking about what happens when you turn it over and the mood that shifts there. So it actually adds a cool creative element that probably we shouldn't have gotten rid of.
So there's actually a different technique to like the mastering process
Oh
when it's
yeah.
a vinyl. Whoa,
Yeah. You
that's
can sum it
interesting.
up, and this is where like we'll lose everybody, but like you can sum it up to like you make sure that there's no 80 hertz and below aren't staggering, phasing out of left and right. Make sure that's centered. You can essentially like make sure that it's a lower, generally speaking, a lower volume, more dynamic and so forth. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's absolutely like things you gotta do. It's in some document in some course that I made sometime in some company that I had. Somebody can go read it there. But yeah, there's like a very specific, you master 2 or 4 vinyl, and if that's true, then that means that you can mix for vinyl, which means that you can produce for vinyl, which means you can write for vinyl. It stems all the way back to the creative process.
Interesting. I do love the idea. Like I don't have vinyl myself, but it's just such like a romantic idea to have like the vinyl and be so intentional about what you listen to. And if it's a good opportunity for artists to actually get paid, I mean, I think that's a good thing to get behind. So yeah, I think it'd
For
be cool
sure.
if it sticks around. And I started like looking into it. Like, how do you make vinyls? Like, do you think there's an opportunity for like? So let's talk to the musician because I have a lot of musicians that I know
Right.
that aren't quote unquote like famous worldwide or anything, but they do care about their original art, and they're also in like the performance world of doing corporate events and weddings and things like that. And it's a bit of a tricky thing to kind of find the balance and get the audience from your clients part of the audience of your music that listens to you. Do you think there's like, is it hard to start making vinyls if you're a small artist? Because it looked like it didn't cost that much to get started, but I wasn't sure. Like, do you see an opportunity there for artists who aren't big yet to start making vinyl, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's quite easy. Like,
Really? Okay.
yeah, so it really the artists want to feel validated for their art that they're making, and they feel
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, if I just give away my stuff for free, then it's like, what am I really doing? And I don't want to put it on
Mm-hmm.
Spotify because I'm not getting paid for it. But I look at it same in like the industry I'm in now, which is online education. It's digital information is everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to monetize on that in every little, squeezing the juice out of the lemon as much as you can, it actually shoots you in the foot. It's similar to the artist. It's just put it on streaming, get everybody listening, give it for free. Who cares what you're going to get paid on the royalty thing? Don't worry about it. Just get it out there. Post it on Instagram, post it on Twitter. Just boom, just put it everywhere for free. Anything digital is free. Now I'm sort of getting my opinion, but if you want to pay for this, it will be in a physical representation. So there's
Right.
something interesting about anything that's physical, where that you can
Mm-hmm.
hold your hands on, and there's authentic connection with a physical thing. That's proven to be the thing that people are willing to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Interesting.
because of that, um not only is it not difficult for like an artist coming up to put their stuff on vinyl, it's actually kind of the thing that you need to do if you want to like provide physical representation of your music. Obviously, like CDs are going away and all that, or have gone away. So yeah, it's pretty easy. Like I was in Nashville a few months ago, um walking by that, like the main hub of vinyl pressing. I forget what it's called. Somebody listening would probably know this, but I remember a friend of mine was like, "Oh, there's where like everything started in America for this vinyl thing," and it was boarded up. Like, what's going on? Like, oh, it was basically like there's so many people doing it that it's not this special tiny little sliver of the market providing it. You can very easily put your stuff on vinyl. It's more like how you prepare your files for vinyl. That's the thing that's difficult. Is putting stuff on vinyl is easy. What's hard is that you have all these crazy like bedroom producers putting all these limiters on their tracks, and then like just shipping off MP3s to a vinyl pressing and it sounds horrible. That's the thing that's harder. It's very, very easy, however, to put stuff on vinyl.
But to do it right takes the skills to know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, but to like actually print it and get an order, it's fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. This
Mhm.
is so good because I'm getting so many loops closed that have been open for me for a while. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But I know that we have both work with musicians and kind of at different ends of the spectrum. I'm curious if there's anything general or maybe not that you feel you've noticed about musicians that is often something that's right in front of them that they don't see, anything that's like holding musicians back with their mindset maybe, or I don't know if any of this makes sense, but what sort of things do you realize helps musicians get to their goal, would you say?
What they're not confused about, generally speaking, is like the type of music they want to make and the type of music they want to
Mm.
play.
Mm-hmm.
What they are confused about, generally speaking, is the struggle of like, how am I going to survive like monetarily doing this, like
Mm.
financially speaking? That's always the struggle, it seems like.
Right.
And if you present some ways to do so, it usually compromises their art in some way, and they'd rather
Mm-hmm.
just not compromise their art. So it's just very very difficult internally, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Very difficult. But I don't know, the only two people I've seen being rewarded financially, and I don't know why I'm so fixated on the finance thing, but the only two people I've seen rewarded financially as a musician are those who really tap into their artistry and really create something amazing and
Mm-hmm.
just stuck with it and hustled with it. And that's the classic like 1% of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um and the other side of the things, the other sort of person or musician that seems to figure that out is who really just has like some business acumen, like
Mm-hmm.
actually knows how to sell something and knows how to market themselves and like knows how to hustle. And that takes that skill set comes from another world, and they just need to
Mm-hmm.
have some of that stuff in order to succeed. And bringing up Taylor Swift, she basically has both. Like,
Oh yeah.
some would say that like, oh no, she's just a pop artist, she sold out or whatever, but no, she knew how to write pop songs when she was 12. Like, and she just continued to
Mm-hmm.
do that and then changed the
Mm-hmm.
styles based off of the time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
also an incredibly intelligent businesswoman. So, yeah, it seems like it's very difficult to find both of those people, or at least both of those things in one musician.
Right. That's so true. Yeah, I want to go two directions here, but I need to be more like sympathetic to that myself because for me, I love like playing violin for someone's party. Like I love that, and so it's
Yeah.
not. But for some people, it's not. They, like you said, it feels like it compromises their art to go that path. So you really need to make a decision because yeah, you can definitely, it's an easy way to get paid to do it live for private events, but it's not the right path for everyone if it's gonna
Right.
compromise what they're going for. But there are different ways. uh Taylor Swift, what I because I noticed she redid like her like re-recorded music. What is that one of the smart business things she did, or what moves have she made that you think are particularly interesting, would you say?
Yeah, that was very smart. Um, I mean, you see people have zero audience re-record their stuff. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's that's kind of dumb because they're just like perfectionism is killing them or something and like nobody's listening. But with her entire catalog coming up, like, you know, that was owned by somebody else. Like she
Hmm.
she didn't own that and like just didn't see the benefits of that. And so for her to basically be like, I'm just gonna re-release them, she did that, of course, to keep true to herself, but it's very clever because she knows that she has such a huge, deep audience that whatever she puts out, people will love as long as she does it like authentic to who she is. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very clever. If you don't have a ginormous audience, I probably would never do that. But because she has one of the largest audiences in the world, she just knew, okay, I have an audience. They're going to capitalize on this. I can keep all the profits and they're going to love it. Very, very, very clever. Yeah. I'm not sure like how she did it, whether it was like she just pulled up the stems and re-sang over them. I don't necessarily think they re-recorded every little track, but definitely her vocals she completely redid.
And what was the function of that? Like, I feel like I might understand that it was just the record deal had a certain amount of time, and then I don't
I
know
think
exactly what the
I
arrangement
think
was,
it
but why
was
was
more
that
sinister.
advantageous? Oh,
I think it
okay.
was more sinister than that. I think somebody really screwed her. When I really
Uh-huh.
looked into it, it was the classic like, you know, patriarchy thing. Like somebody owned everything
Hmm.
and she won some lawsuit or something and then she's like, I'm just going to re-record this all myself now that I have the rights to this, and she fought for those things.
Wow.
And so it was a real battle. It wasn't like a whimsical idea. It was like a mission for her.
Interesting. Well, good for her. That's yeah. Those are things like there's so many like horror stories when you dig deep into the musicians who just
Oh
want to
yeah.
focus on the art, but then that's good that she was able to make right. I don't know exactly what went wrong, but things do go wrong when you don't know what's the going on. Well, not like I know anything about this world, but yeah, people can not be good. I can imagine.
Right.
But oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Different thing. When it comes to because like now we've talked about like mastering.com essentially.
Mhm.
Now you're doing college.com. So
Mhm.
tell us about that. And I'm also curious because you are doing like a personal brand a bit when it comes to like being on YouTube now, whereas before when you grew mastering.com, it was, you weren't the face of the brand.
Mhm.
Maybe this conversation is more just for me, but I'm curious, what's your thinking behind the personal brand aspect and what you're doing at college.com?
If the conversation is for you, then I would imagine the people that follow you would be curious too, because what you put
And
out into the world, like you end up resonating with very similar feelings and thoughts that everybody's experiencing. So I imagine if it's connected to your interest, that I think everybody else would be very curious too. But it's yeah, I've said this too often, but and I need to stop saying it, but because it's such a tagline. But didn't start, but I sold the business that I started with like 7 subscribers on YouTube. So it's the whole idea of like that was classic. Like you do not need an audience or face to build this company. It's still
mm-hmm,
true.
mm-hmm,
So you know that whole like personal brand thing. It's for me, it's just like an art thing. I think I'll do it not to get clients or not to like lead magnet or any of that nonsense, which is why people do it. I think it's just a way for me to show up and sort of play as long as it doesn't
mm-hmm,
distract from business. So that's one side of
mm-hmm,
things. But what I'm doing there, yeah, it's essentially um it'll definitely be bigger than me. It already is. This brand. Like if there's anything
mm-hmm,
that I know, it's like if you start out with a brand bigger than yourself, like you grow into it and you just need to
mm,
facilitate that process, and it removes you from the beginning, which allows for growth. Because growth, the bottleneck of growth usually is always yourself, or at least for me, that was the case. Every
mm-hmm,
time I exited or replaced myself, that's not delegate. I mean, really, truly replace myself. Business grew and grew and grew. If you can just start
mm,
off like that, that'd be great. Um, but yeah, essentially what I'm doing now is basically there's a spectrum of people, right? People that are really good at what they do. It's similar to my story, who have shifted into making money online somehow, whether that's through online courses or masterminds or all this stuff that you hear. And usually they've been sold like an idea that like this is the model or this is the way you do it. And I found that actually the most successful thing I could do is break all those things
mm,
and develop your own model. So really, there's just a spectrum of people. There's the person who's, and I'm deeply passionate about these people. They're not marketers. The running joke with college is it's not marketers marketing to marketers. You know, it's like, are you good at something in the real world? Like, for God's sake, is there anything there? Yes. Okay. Awesome. Have you made some sort of endeavor into the online world at all? Even better. have you also shifted into training and mentoring and helping other people do it in some form through education? Way better. Awesome. Okay. Those people I have a strong passion for. Not just like getting them more clients, but finding models that work for them that it's like, oh, it's so refreshing to do it this way. Like I don't need a sales team, or I really like sales and so I'm going to lean into that, or I hate dancing on TikTok to get clients. Well, there's another way to do it. They really just want to fall back in love with their passion and do it in a way where they can make money online. Like those people make, 10, 20, 30, 50 grand a month doing that and seeing like some great success, all the way to the people that have been doing this for a long time and they're in education. They're not marketers marketing to marketers. They're still passionate about a specific subject matter, but they have a 500,000 to $1 million a month business. I know that that's a huge range from the two people I'm describing, and they've again been sold a bill of goods that this is the way you do it: scale, 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 scale. And they're realizing, oh my gosh, I can never sell this business, or I don't know what's next, or I feel like I hit the lottery. I feel like I'm always working. I just help them redesign and re-engineer their business to either sell it or exit it in some way to where they can keep it as an asset, or rediscover their passion again and giving them multiple models through the use of leverage somehow. And so it's really the core common essence is they're really passionate about what they do and their passion drives them, and it's not just marketing. And they've lost themselves in the process and trying to help them find realignment again to help them move forward. That seems to be the common thread. And together, if we get thousands of those people, that will make a huge dent in the education space, because if you fix those people and align their mindset, their students will be in the thousands. So it's the ultimate form of leverage, basically. That's kind of what college is trying to do. Eventually probably investing into them, both financially and with time, and really bringing up all this talent that's out there, and actually help them get out into the world. That's kind of the passion project that college is right now.
So cool. So if I got to write two avatars, the one is the underground talent expert who's dabbled but not full into their online product that they're selling, and the other is have the online education business working but don't know how to exit it, or just trying to figure out what's next.
Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
you got
And
it?
everybody in
Okay.
between.
Yeah. Very cool. Because I know that well, I can imagine you were in both of those shoes before as well. What was the mindset behind mastering.com and like exiting that? And like, what was your experience like? Or what, I'll just ask, like, what motivated you to not continue being like the majority in that
Yeah.
business, or
The,
however
the
it's
face
put?
of it, or the expert, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
owner. Yeah.
hmm
Um, what motivated me? Well, every time I grew it, I could trace it back to a moment where I got out of the way, essentially.
Hmm.
So the deep domain expertise, like, I needed that. My ability to articulate and communicate the essence of that was another skill set that I have. The combination of those two things really is what drove the success of that business. And then that only gets so far. Then you need
hmm
help. You need team members. So you're literally at an income, ceiling if all you have is yourself. And this is more than just delegate tasks. This is like I need to communicate and transfer who I am to other people. And
hmm
the first bit was like marketing, advertising, joint ventures, partnerships, all this stuff. There's people who can do that, but that's relinquishing control. Okay, that's hard. I don't want to do that. But little moments of like, okay, I'll relinquish control there. Boom, success. Okay, I think I can sell on the phone, like somebody else can. Boom, success. Oh wow, like training could be made better by my own students. Like, let them make the training. Boom, success. And it's painful, but every single time where I had to remove myself, the business grew. And so now it was like an asset that, like, okay, this is this thing that's humming, and every problem or bottleneck seems to point back to me. and I just need to find ways to leave so that it can continue to grow. And as you can imagine, that's like an excavation process. It's like, well, who am I? Then what value do I actually bring? And I think ego really was the thing that ego and lifestyle is what keeps it at a certain income level. But if you're able to, really bring yourself out of it, it grows and grows and grows and grows. So when it came time to like, what's the next level of business? It's like, well, you know, more of that. Let's give ownership to our team members. Let's bring on other people and partners. Let's try to like get an acquisition. Let's keep growing. And that was the best thing ever because it's continuing to grow and my involvement is very appropriate. It's it's just going to grow without me now. And I think exiting and really finding alignment with who you are or who I was in the process is really what makes other people be able to have, a fulfilling income in your business and so forth. I mean, that's really rewarding. That and the passion of just like, whoa, I was able to do that. That's really rare, I think. And I want to do that with a lot of people, not just with one company. So I see college as like 1,000mastering.coms, like any sort of business underneath that or alongside that. There's just more leverage there. There's more excitement. There's more impact. And it's a big mission. And it's something that I could even say as much. I mean, I've got the long hair and I'm a musician. Like I'm never going to get rid of that, right? But it's leaning into different skill sets that I think are who I am, which is articulation, it's communication, it's being an advocate for people, it's big business, if you will, it's growing companies, it's more diversity. It just seems to be the logical and like passion project that I needed to do. And so I said, let's just do it. That's essentially it.
As like of a much smaller scale, like relatable, that when I started backing away, I told you a little bit about my story, like first
Right.
moving away from like my home in Canada and then having other people play the performances for me. And it's like, oh, I guess they don't need me. We're still getting great
Yeah,
reviews. Like
exactly.
it's a humbling experience. Like, okay, that's all right.
Yeah,
They
that's
don't need
right.
me for that. Yeah, and then it just kept going from there. Like now, same thing. Like I think I got lucky because like my friends are so good when it comes to like their management of things, but they do a way better job when it comes to like the administrative details than I did too.
Right.
And it's just better. And it's cool to see something work without you, but it does take a little bit of that like ego drop to be like, okay, I'm not needed.
Oh, it
Um,
hurts. It hurts big time.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
it really
You
does. It's
can
like,
find
oh,
yourself again.
exactly. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
It's all that. Who am I? Where's the actual value? What am I doing? You know, it's all that. Yeah. I don't think that's unique to me. I think everybody experiences that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's cool. It's encouraging to see what you've done. Again, I'm talking at like baby scale here in comparison, but I do know that it's cool to see things work without you and to help people when you're working with people. It's so much more fun
Oh, I
too to
know.
just like work back, like get other people's thoughts, bounce ideas off of each other. Like one big thing that is really helpful is just like workshop emails together when there's a particularly tricky situation, whatever it is. It is so nice to have other people around, and
Right.
yeah, when you can completely remove yourself, I imagine that's a cool feeling in its own way. So I mean, that's exciting. I think it's super exciting what you're doing. Just because you brought it up in your own like YouTube and like personal brand that you're putting out there, you talk about how your family and your faith is like a huge value component of what helps you to be able to, build the businesses that you do and create the value that you do. Can you expand a little bit more? Tell us about your mindset about, yeah, I guess how faith has helped you build businesses and your thinking around that.
Yeah. I think sort of the the apex of value that I have, it can really be traced back to my faith. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I've joked about this before. I'm religious but not spiritual. Everybody says like I'm spiritual
The
but not
opposite.
religious. That's widely accepted. Like I'm not religious because religious has all this oppression, it has all this patriarchy, it
Right.
has institutionalized corruption. There's so much, all this. But I'm spiritual. Essentially, what you're saying is, as I'm connected I'm connected to the divine in a way that's helpful and useful and really transcends all of these man-made institutions. I'm very sympathetic to that idea. In that case, okay, sure, I'm spiritual, but um, no, I'm I'm religious, not spiritual. So it's I'd say that my like devotion to I guess on a general level, the sort of the God of the Bible, and namely in the person of Jesus, that's the core and very in the very center of my decision making, and like how I do my life and how I make decisions. And it's more than just wisdom. It's really the entire identity of who I am. And every time I think that I I really knock something out of the park business wise, it's like, wait a second, I didn't get that from some business book. I got that from like deep meditation and intuition of what I thought I needed to do because of my devotion to my faith, you know? And it's like, why throttle that? Let's just lean into that. At the very least, it's useful. But
Right.
in the grander scheme of things, it's like, wow, if I just do more of that, I'll be more aligned to who I am. And I think I'm like solving a greater purpose in that regard. And I
Mm-hmm.
understand completely how there are some people that listen to that and sort of roll their eyes, and I'm also sympathetic to that as well. Um, but I can't ignore the historical truths of the claims of Scripture,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't ignore the transcendence of how it just makes sense of all these worldviews that I'm exposed to. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's sort of it's if somebody's very curious about it, that's something I could talk about for hours. But I also understand that many people don't identify, and that's perfectly fine. I make a very strong case though that like if you find that core center of your belief and what you value and your identity, that's actually the thing that drives you. So if you
Mm-hmm.
can solve the identity issue, um, then then you don't have all this fear. Who am I? What am I doing? That I think all those scary questions of like we talked about, just who am I? Where's my
Mm-hmm.
value? All that stuff. It's all just kind of answered and taken care of, in a cosmic sense for me. So
Mm-hmm.
I just a constant reminder of that, and I'm able to sort of make these seemingly scary moves, I guess. That I think just because I know who I am, and I know on a cosmic level like where I fall basically. I might have lost everybody there, but hopefully I answered your question.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. And yeah, I think that's so powerful because I think what is lacking, well, I'm with you on like, I'm a truth seeker. I feel that people, when they pursue truth, like it's like truth's going to set you free, it's going to be healthy,
Hmm.
the healthiest way to live your life. And I think if just starting with that belief and the
Right.
seeing where it takes you is only going to lead to having a healthier state of being. And I know
Yes.
people are in different places on different journeys, but unfortunately it's like some people believe that there is no truth, and I think that's
Right.
that's
Right.
dangerous. I think if you do believe there's truth, then you can pursue it and then find who you're, like you said, your identity and your relationship to God in the world. And I think that that's super powerful because I see, it's interesting because I don't, tell me if I'm crazy, but I see on the entrepreneurial side of like, that world, there's a lot of people who are just like, oh, I create my world, I think
Yeah.
it and I make
Right.
it. And I think that that's, faith is important, and like faith does like, move mountains, it makes things happen. I think that's super powerful. But then I see on the other side a lot of people believe that, who aren't in the entrepreneurial world will say that like, oh, life just happens to me or whatever, and like my
Right.
faith doesn't change that. And I feel like it's interesting because I we're all just trying to figure it out, but I feel like the truth is in the middle, that there's so much that is not our doing that we can be grateful for, that leads us to be able to create. But at the same time, we still have like a commission and are able to
Right.
create through our faith. And I think that sometimes is missing, just that balance, be recognizing that like I'm here because not because of my own doing or my own making, and there's a lot of things that I can't take credit for, but I can still shape reality and like kind of partner
Right.
with like God's will, if you want to put it that way, or wherever you at. I
Right.
think that there's power in balancing that. I don't know, is that crazy? Does that make sense?
No,
It's just
that
something I
totally
think
makes
about.
sense. I think you're spot on. Like in the religious sense,
Mm-hmm.
there's all these terms for it: Calvinism, Arminianism. In philosophy, there's sort of
Mm-hmm.
self-determinationism.
Mm-hmm.
There's the will to power. That's Nietzsche. There's yeah, you're either a determinist or you create your own reality. It's like these ideas exist everywhere. And even
Mm-hmm.
in music, like, is that an original idea or did you steal that? Or, it's like
Right.
it's just everywhere. But I do sense that this idea that like there is a predetermined will for your life that will happen with regardless of what you're gonna do. That there's truth to this. And then and it's like both
Mm-hmm.
and you're like directly responsible for your actions. How do those
Mm-hmm.
two things like coincide?
Right.
That's why we're human beings, because those things aren't supposed to. If I could truly, have simplicity of thought around these ideas, then whatever God claims that idea to be true, it wouldn't be one that I would want to worship because I can understand this God fully. So yeah,
Right.
I love the confusion and the mess of it because it just shows how futile we are. But it's hard, right? Because I think people want to just box into one worldview and say, nope, I determine my own thing, or nope, everything's determined for me. It's just such overly simplistic way of thinking that it doesn't allow you, I think, to freely play and create. You just have to subscribe to one particular two-dimensional worldview, and it's just unfortunate because you sort of lose yourself in that. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's definitely not simple to think about, but I guess, if you test it, if there is a God, then probably wouldn't be easy to understand
Yeah,
either.
that
So,
that's the
yeah.
thing. That's the thing I like what you said about truth. It's like just the search for it is, I think, the thing that ought to be rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
Like my old
Mm-hmm.
my old business partner and I, we had completely differing worldviews. He's an atheist, like
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'm a theist, and it's just like, well, how can these two people. But I've seen this. The pursuit of truth is what mends like the two people like that together. And
Mm-hmm.
I subscribe to like Aquinas' idea of like all truth is God's truth. So if there's any truth that comes from him, and you can find it everywhere in every corner of the universe.
Right.
So yeah, to say that one is this way and not this way, it's actually very it doesn't serve anybody. It's I think it's
Mm-hmm.
driven by fear.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Yeah. And that's
yeah,
an
I don't
interesting thing.
I don't know how that relates to online education or violin, but maybe it does.
Oh, that's right. I think it's interesting to talk about, important to for people to ask themselves and to
Mm,
think about. So yeah, thanks for. I think like what you're doing, college.com, and the content you're putting out, and being vulnerable and truthful about what motivates you and what makes you think that you can, make a positive impact in the world, and like having that faith. I think that like so much of everything we do is faith, whether you believe in God or
right.
not, and just like recognizing that the sort of creative power in that belief is a great thing for any human to learn, no matter where they are or what they believe. And I love that about music. Like it attracts so many different people, often on like opposite ends of spectrums, and I
Right.
love how it creates that environment for us to all relate no matter what, and connect
Mm,
and open up. And I think that's important. But yeah, no, thanks for sharing. That's super cool. Is there
yeah.
anything else that we like missed talking about here? I'm not sure.
I'm sure we could talk for a long time. I'm not sure. No, I think what you're doing is great, by the way. This is awesome. You're
Thank you.
awesome. The what you're building here is awesome, and we should just do this more often.
I agree. I think I was so happy when you said yes. I'm like, this is never gonna work.
Oh yeah.
And then
When
you're
you
just
were like, "Can you do this?" I'm like, "Yeah. I got nothing else to do.
oh
This
yeah.
sounds awesome. Let's
Yeah.
do it."
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for your support. Yeah, musicwork.com appreciates your wisdom, as we're figuring out our stuff. We are having fun.
Yeah.
By the time this goes out, it will be, because I haven't like publicly announced that we're doing like there's a free community for people who want to do more of the work they love, less of the work they don't. So by the time this is out, if you're not there already, people can check out musicwork.com for that. But where can people learn more about you? We got to
Mm.
clarify the spelling here. It's college with a K. Other
Oh
than that, it's really
yes.
easy. College.com. Tell us more about where people can learn about you and get connected.
Just go to college.com. It's all there. And then if you want to like explore online education and you want to just like whether you're making $1 million a month and you have no idea what's next, or whether you're just really passionate about your craft and you're not sure which model to do, just go to college.com. There's a You can just go in there. I like will meet you. There's no weird like paywall. Like if you just go there, there's a link to like hang out with me. We hang out every Wednesday. I get to meet people. You get to shake hands with the owner, if you will. Totally free. And that's basically it. Just go there.
Yeah. And he's not kidding. He literally like the value calls that you put on are incredible, and you're just like so generous, giving so much and to people just by taking the time to listen and chat with them there, and it's super cool. So love what you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. This has been like highlight of my week here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. That's the pod.